Checking in again with State Representative Tacky Chan of Quincy for our weekly Tacky Talk update now in the new year. Hey, Tacky,
Hey, Joe. Good to see you.
you didn't get blown away by the last wind and rainstorm, I see.
Oh, I didn't sleep that much, regretfully. I think everyone that lives a bit closer to the water is aware of the sheer volume of rattling your windows and random pieces of whatever in front of your home hitting the side of your home or the shrubs or the trees or whatever that you live. So, those who know, I live across from Blacks Creek Marsh. So I have quite a non-obstructed view of the marsh, which means also non-obstructive view of wind. I obviously don't live right on the water. I'm sure those right on the water are used to and see much more direct wind impact off the water. But I'm sure everyone felt some level of debris, that you never knew just came off a tree, floating around in front of you. And those, put garbage out the night before and didn't have it secure. I'm pretty confident you guys all know what happens next. So yeah, I've had a few more tiresome nights of waking up than I've had in a little while.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's another one on the way this weekend too. So no rest for the weary.
Well, three major storms and a Patriots coaching change. It's quite a turbulent week for us in New England. And I believe it's at the shooting of this review, it's about what, 11:10-ish about. And supposed to be like a noontime announcement today regarding a change of the Patriots for the first time in 24 years.
Right. Yeah. Not totally unexpected by those who watch that. But yeah, the two topics we love to talk about most here in New England, right? Weather and sports.
Well, it's a guaranteed minimum ability to have a conversation with anybody in this state.
That's true. We we can either moan together about it or wax philosophic.
Exactly. Unless you're a Yankee fan, then it becomes a whole other conversation.
You don't want to get into that conversation on the subway
It's
because
very
you have no way out.
no, that's very, very fair.
So what's happened since last we chatted?
Well, I mean, this has been actually somewhat of an eventful week. We did a so-called revenge porn bill yesterday in the House. Honestly, this is a bill we did last cycle that the House had sent over, actually not too far off from this time of year. And the Senate didn't take action on it until the very last day of informal sessions, not formal sessions, which then created no situation to find a resolution before the session closed. So, Speaker Mariano and, the House members decided that we should do this. And those who are not aware, we're talking about people whose sexual acts or, I'm trying to use a good word here, but I mean nudity, lack of clothing, or sexualized pictures or videos are released without permission into the public. And you all know about sexting at this point. This is something that you and I never would have conceived when we were young. Being given to other people by phone or email, social media. And guys, we all know there's porn sites, okay? I mean, internet and porn kind of go together. And people do revenge porn. They either, with consent or without consent, take a video of sexual acts and then post it on the internet as a form of revenge, with the consent of the other person. Massachusetts and South Carolina, actually the last two states who do not have some form of law that addresses this issue. So, from our standpoint, it was very important. We're also sensitive to minors, right? The obviously child porn, we put you away, right? That's not complicated. But you got teenagers being stupid, so to speak, and they engage in sexting, which you all have seen in the news. So, we do diversion programs and higher education programs to basically discourage future behavior. But, we do, have severe penalties for folks who are not minors that engage in this practice, which includes, I'm going to read off the sheet so you actually know what I'm saying. One first offense, penalty up to 2.5 years in the House of Correction, fine of not more than $10,000 or both. Second offense results in 2.5 years in House of Correction or up to 10 years in state prison and a fine of not more than $50,000 or both. So, we have a two-tiered penalty system of instance. So first instance, second instance, if you engage in this type of behavior. And, we're pretty straightforward on identification. I mean, obviously, it's you. Yeah, I mean, that's part of this. And, able to file, police, give police ability to charge your crime and proceed with trying to go to court and get this penalties imposed. And then you also have conversive control and domestic violence, which, as you can see, I'm looking down here. Basically, we expanded the definition of abuse for the purposes of domestic violence to include coercive control, which is not currently there. Coercive control is basically the ability to not physically intimidate someone into behaving the way you want as a form of control. Essentially, gaslighting. I'm not sure if the younger audience knows what gaslighting is, but I think everyone a little older knows that you set up an environment where your abuser doesn't actually touch you, but creates a hostile environment where you psychologically feel that you are the problem, essentially,
Right.
and manipulate you into doing things that the abuser wants, and it causes enormous psychological and then perhaps self-inflicting damage.
Right. You can kind of create this controlled environment around the victim, limiting their access to information, to communication with family and friends, essentially keeping them in your own little preconceived bubble.
That's correct. And also, your abuser may create toxicity among as you pointed out, your friends, your family, your social circles. That could be a potential support network. And, that's the type of coercive behavior where, you create isolation, whether directly or through the social circle, to create this very toxic environment. So we've added that definition in this bill as part of domestic abuse, which gives greater power to law enforcement and district attorney's office to look more widely about, whether or not this is a domestic abuse case. It also reflects the modern world today. I mean, social media, texting, group chats, are much more involved than, people used to didn't have telephones on your pocket and you just had to rumor mill your way around, everywhere. And everyone's, aware of this no matter what your age is, whether or not you caught on to it at the time. But I mean, it's also kind of complicated because you may not be aware you've been a part of the gaslighting.
That's right. That's part of it, right? Is you only have limited information, so you don't know that you're being kept in the dark, essentially.
Yes, and coercive behavior takes some time to be more apparent. As unfortunately, no one should be subject to this, but it does something that evolves, as a victim, that it starts to make an appearance, but it's so subtle and slow.
Mhm.
And if you compound that on top of physical abuse and other forms of direct emotional abuse, it just compounds the situation.
Yeah, yeah. So I understand this bill passed unanimously, right? Right, Jackie?
It did. I mean, we, have some provisions here about extreme situations regarding sexting. Obviously, they can be brought up with criminal charges, even if you're a juvenile. There's a lot of discretion, of course, to law enforcement, police regarding circumstances associated with minors. But obviously, that's trying to create a circumstance where we're trying to discourage future bad behavior, except in very, very bad cases. But also, let people, adults, that want to engage this, beat them on alert that your victim can go after you criminally. In Massachusetts if you engage in this behavior. I know it's complicated. I know it's the internet. I know there's a lot of anonymity. But if you're able to identify yourself as a victim, I mean, you do have the ability to start a recourse process criminally. And it's a good bill. I mean, I'm very proud to be able to get it out again very early in 2024. Since it is January, we do stuff, folks, in January. And I'm hopeful that the Senate will takes action on this, hopefully quickly, before we close formal sessions in July.
Yeah, I know here in Quincy, Senator Keenan's a big proponent, so we'll see where it goes.
Yes. So I agree with that. So we'd like to get this governor's desk as quickly as possible.
Very good. There was some budget talks too, right?
Yeah, you've seen in the news that our FY24 projections have not been making benchmark. We are ahead of FY23 and 22 in terms of revenue collected, but we're not hitting our estimates. And so we got to differentiate this a little bit from folks who are thinking the sky is falling. The economy is still very strong. Unemployment's under 4%. Inflation is coming down, even though we're not all feeling it yet. There is a delayed response. But, interest rates are still high. And, that stuff is delayed. It isn't like, again, I said earlier, when interest rates shift, it isn't like that morning, the entire population changes their spending habit because of the interest rate shift.
Right.
These things are incremental over time periods. Same thing with inflation. Just because the price of eggs has gone down wholesale, it takes time for this stuff to trickle down to you. Same thing with fuel prices, right? Just because oil spikes that morning doesn't mean your gas spikes immediately right afterwards.
Right.
They will spike, but there's a time delay between the actual market shift versus it gets to retail. So this is kind of
the gas that's in the tank at your local gas station was purchased at the old price, like a month ago.
Yeah, exactly. It is a little. Again, it's not as I think people look at macro data and think, oh, okay, things are happening this minute. It's not macro data. It takes time to filter onto us on the street level. Right. So we have a lot going on in the economy, but I want to emphasize first, is economy is very, very strong despite some of the challenges on prices because people are still working. And we are collecting more than we did before, but certain things came in a little bit under. For example, and I talk about this all the time. December sales tax and use tax was not as rigorous. Christmas, while sales were very high for retailers in dollars, it did not translate into tax dollars.
Right.
And that's a big part of it. And people started to be much more finicky and choosy and careful what they do and buy. You all saw that there was a lot of travel in December and Thanksgiving, the highest travel period since before COVID. But again, those tickets were purchased probably back in September or August. It isn't like you decide to buy a plane ticket 3 days before Thanksgiving because you're not insane unless you have a family emergency or a business emergency. You're not doing that, right? You gotta be crazy to do that unless you have a legit emergency situation. So, like that impact on travel, for example, we probably won't see until moving into the spring and summer, which in Massachusetts' case is tourism. Mm-hmm. People come in for leap heaving, people come in for graduations or getting the kids to school in September because we're still college city. And obviously, a lot of foreign tourists, particularly from China and England, and a lot of places from Canada, actually do visit Massachusetts during the warmer weather. So we'll see how the economic slowdown and again the price increases and people being squeezed will impact our economy going into the spring because tourist money is great because there's no infrastructure real. We don't have to pay for infrastructure to be here; they just spend money.
They're just coming and leaving their money. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and economic development, but a big part of it is sales tax, use tax, meal tax, hotel tax. Yeah. Using local infrastructure, one time like the MBTA is like a one-time use. Uber's a one-time use. I mean,
they go out to eat. They pay the meals tax. Yeah,
there's a whole lot of state impact. So again, we'll wait and see how this unfolds. Again, I said earlier, the macro doesn't filter to the street level. It takes time to watch it occur. So we're unfortunately anticipating that there will be not making benchmark. Yeah, we're doing better than we did in the past, but we're not making our benchmarks, and a lot of these macroeconomic issues are now filtering to the street level. Also, people realize we don't get taxes on a steady rate. The state isn't like every month getting an equal number of tax money in. It is an ebb and flow. And finishing 6 months of the fiscal year, you only collect about 45%-ish of all your tax revenue. Big surprise, folks. The biggest chunk shows up on one day in April.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Which we get an extra day this year, by the way, because of Patriots Day.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. You get one more. Yeah. The 16th of April is when your taxes. Well, because they encourage you to get it done sooner. If you're getting a refund, get it much sooner.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, 55% of state revenues are collected after January 1st. The lion's share, by far none, is in one day in April. So why did we go through 9C cuts, or why did the government engage in 9C cuts? And it's quite simple. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and you rather get ahead of it now. You rather have a situation where you're at zero or slightly above zero in terms of collections, you're above breaking even, rather than below breaking.
Yeah, that's the one question I had was that it was mentioned that part of the cuts are coming in social services, and I'm wondering if anything here in Quincy is being impacted that you know of.
Yeah, sadly, some of the earmarks that we put out there, has been impacted. Quincy Resource took a 50% cut. Germantown Neighborhood Center, the Adams Presidential Library took a 50% cut. The Rashidi Drive temporary signalization project, took a 50% cut. Unfortunately, the delegation breaks bad news to people sometimes too. So. I'm sure phone calls have been made, and I made my calls relative to the ones I affected by to let them know. And honestly, people are very understanding the calls when I made them. They weren't angry, they weren't upset, they weren't happy, obviously. But they're very understandable circumstances, and we've had a good run. Okay, and I know COVID was awful, but had all that economic stimulus money from feds, not just giving money to the state, but also into our economy. We've had a good revenue increase because of unexpected wage inflation, right? Your income tax is tied to wages. And, we had seen like 9% wage inflation at one point. So, obviously we collected more income tax than we anticipated, right? And the same thing with strong economy. People started traveling, they had revenge spending, revenge travel after COVID, plus, from other parts of the country, not just in Massachusetts.
Yep.
And that economic assistance money that the feds put out and to all these counties and states and municipalities, isn't just a Massachusetts thing. Some of those folks from other states use that money, perhaps to buy something online retailer that is based in Massachusetts but goes through Amazon, for example, or Etsy. Right? There are other people and we do that other thing too. People in this state will buy goods and services from other states, perhaps using some of the money, or likely not, probably did use some of your money they received from the feds, the free, COVID monies, to engage those purchases, which then, stimulates the economy in both areas, right? Same with place travel, right? People had extra money to travel. And they did. Yeah, so I mean, we had overall a very good run in Massachusetts. And 2020 was the year my projection for a economic downturn was going to come, and that has not happened in 2020 because of COVID. Because you're looking at recession somewhere between 8-ish to 10-ish years, putting aside the dot-com boom, the 03 to 08 financial crisis, which was very unusual to have a recession such short time period between the two. But between 8 and 10 years, especially after a very good run of the economy, we fully expect at our level that there'll be a recession coming, and obviously state revenues will go stagnant. So no, it's been it's going to be a challenge, but I think at the end of the day, the government did the right move on trying to bring back some of these costs, and I'm sure they're trying to find other ways to save money on the administration level. But you also kept core programs in place. Chapter 70, local aid, education, and municipality assistance money were left in place. We didn't cut universal school breakfasts and school lunches, which is a big deal for everyone. So a lot of the major core programs, weren't affected by 9C cuts. And, and some of this trimming is going to be, simple stuff like office supplies again, right? You try to find new ways to trim a little bit here, a little bit there. So that will be likely continue to remain of the year.
Do you know if the energy assistance programs are affected at all, Tacky?
No.
Okay.
Energy programs should not be affected. Also, there's a federal component to energy assistance programs, more accurately. And energy efficiency is actually tied to your electric and gas bills. So they're shielded from taxpayers, but it's not taxpayer paid for. Your fuel assistance program is a combination of state and federal money.
Okay.
Actually, you brought a good point. Right about this time of year is when the feds are supposed to get us some fuel assistance money.
Yep.
And then we will backfill with state money.
Gotcha.
There's a deficiency to do so.
I see. Yep. And as I understand, the governor did not touch the the quote unquote rainy day fund.
No, we actually have a conversation in caucus about that, and The rainy day fund is not, just to pull it out, whenever we feel rooms, arbitrarily, so to speak. It is designed to address major budget shortfalls and also to address future budgets to ensure that the future budgets are able to be balanced. Because we project a revenue shortfall as part of our budget, and we have essential things we're trying to get paid, we can always put rainy day fund in. And we've had instances where we put rainy day fund into the budget and we had to, refill the rainy day fund because it was premature to put the rainy day fund money in. And it's at $8 billion. We have a budget probably going to be coming out probably $56 billion budget, give or take. I think the governor's going to propose in House 2 on the 24th of this month. $8 billion is very sizable, but anybody listening knows you don't spend all your emergency money in one sit down.
Right.
You try to cut your expenses first, or reallocate, or try to create efficiencies before you dip into your emergency money.
Yeah, it's like running your household budget, right? You don't want to dip into your savings if you don't have to.
Yeah, I certainly don't. I try to trim back. Yes, I talk about it a lot. Prices are high. I've been trimming back a lot. But like everyone else, I mean, I like to retire someday too. And that you save, right? You put your money into your 401k, in my case, a 457. And of course, people talk about the fact that, I do have a pension opportunity. But that, as this environment showed, you can't rely on fixed income annuities to be a solution in retirement. You really need to have secondary sources of private investment. Even if it's tiny amounts, and you do it when you're young, the compounding will mean when you get older, you will have a lot more than what you initially put in. But I mean, also you do what you can. You obviously can't go crazy. You try to put reasonable amounts you can put into the future. That works for you. And unfortunately, some people in COVID had to dip into their 401ks, had to dip into 57s, had to dip into their penalties for their CDs. Well, now you get better CDs, but I'm sure people had things like CDs and all that take penalties off because COVID created that circumstance where 14% unemployment in 1 week, right? So, yeah, and that's when we realized people had such low savings accounts.
Right.
So, a lot of people had to dip into retirement and other monies that were fixed during COVID. But, we had good economic times. People are trying to save money again because you can. But again, inflation's been your buffer. So same thing at our level. We face inflationary costs. We've been facing employment shortfall. I know there's an article out there saying that we've grown the government, but we also haven't grown the government because we had a lot of work during COVID that we had to do a massive hiring component. Like unemployment had to go from 50 employees to 2,000 employees and as quickly as humanly possible in the middle of a health crisis.
Right.
And you just don't dump people. You have to train people. It's not like here's a phone, do work. No, you gotta train people.
And that all had to happen virtually too.
Yeah, and then they have to readjust as we go along because unemployment calls didn't end just because of that massive spike. Unemployment calls will still come into us right into 2021. The economy came back to some life when things started reopening in that second half of 2022. But it wasn't like a miraculous everybody was suddenly off unemployment. People were still on pandemic assistance unemployment right into 2021 and going to 2022. So my office was still dealing with a lot of constituent calls about I'm having problem with accessing system, a lot of fraud in the sense that someone stole the identity. We're getting those calls. We're still getting calls from people who somehow survived the first part of the pandemic, not needing employment. We found out they were, their business closed. They couldn't survive the pandemic. They were laid off because, unfortunately, this business couldn't make it out of the second half. And unemployment was there. So, I mean, it took a long time for unemployment to really, dip back below 4%, which really happened in 2023.
Yeah.
So, and now in our office, we're seeing more calls on unemployment request assistance now than we have had through most of 2023. So, the two things that I'm looking at for economic indicators, obviously the phone calls coming in on housing, unemployment, food stamps, the social services of people mostly first. Well, you know how to use it, wouldn't be calling me, right? So people call me all first time need assistance. And then obviously, I know we talk about the migrant crisis a lot, but again, folks, just barely 50% of the housing shelter assistance program are not migrants, to Massachusetts residents. So you got about 3,000 plus families that are Massachusetts residents in emergency shelters, which reflects the fact that housing crisis has always been here, but now we reached a new threshold of problems because we're looking closer and closer to 2008 to 2010 levels of emergency shelter for Massachusetts families. So, those are kind of some of those economic indicators, which I know is a microcosm. I've talked about this in the past. It's not like it's don't stay, but my little section of Quincy or just looking Quincy, gives me kind of a sense of where the economy may be heading down the road.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because much has been said about about the migrant crisis and how it's pushing the state into debt. It is really is an indicator of the housing crisis that's been kind of bubbling for years.
No, absolutely. And we put some money into the shelter issue through a supplemental budget. Those are one-time transfers between various accounts to cover that situation on a short-term basis. Obviously, we talked about the Fed's lack of assistance and understanding about this humanitarian issue. The governor and House and Senate Ways and Means has a challenge going to FY25, trying to figure out how to manage the costs associated with this, even with the cap implemented by the governor. And even the 9C cuts we just saw, so there was some buffers involved. For example, we're able to do some mass health waivers and transfers again. Lottery money looks like it's not going to make projection, but we're anticipating that it is extra lottery money. They don't go back to cities and towns. City towns already got their money through the budget. We can reclaim that money for ourselves to continue to balance the budget. So, there is a lot of still a lot of mechanisms on trust funds, one-time maneuvers, anticipation of probably some extra money. Settlements. The state is always in the middle of some kind of litigation. People don't realize, the AG's office is extremely busy all the time with litigation. And, the state does get settlements. It's not always us losing cases. We actually do cases. Those are also one-time only impacts to the budget. And, we don't know when they show up.
Right. That's in the court's hands, right? Yeah.
Yeah, totally random.
Yeah.
So, we can, try to see if some of those things appear as well. So it isn't, again, it's going to hear from my commentary. It's not all doom and gloom. It is a belt tightening situation. There'll be some challenges. Core services are not impacted. But it's, the indicators are showing up that, things are definitely slowing down. Do I think it's going to be like 03, 08? No, I don't. Do I think that, it's going to be like 4%, 4.5 perhaps unemployment, possibly. But there's also a lot of other factors, right? I'm not going to beat up on Boston too much, but Boston's construction and other economic development programs have stalled because of the changing policies at City Hall over there. Has a ripple impact around the state, right? People here, do construction work in Boston too. Right, the big biotech companies, looking like they're getting towards the end of this phase of construction in places like Cambridge. The higher interest rates may slow down,
right?
Future construction. So, there may be still some financing in place, maybe not, right? So, there's a lot of other factors involved here. And again, I talk about tourism, I talk about exports, alcohol consumption. We have an excise tax. How does that impact our revenues? Beer sales are down. Spirit sales are down.
Right, but cannabis sales are up.
Cannabis is up. But we also talk about that. That's reaching a threshold.
Right, yeah.
So they're up, but we all know they're reaching a point where you plateau.
Well, the market's about saturated, I think, or close to it, yeah.
Yeah, and then, part of trying to address 9C cuts, they're trying to get a better sense of what the gaming revenues will look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whether we like it or not, NCAA is coming up. There's the next big one, right?
Yes, March Madness. Charlie Baker's all set for it, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Charlie, we want tickets, right? So I'm sure his friends are all over him already. But yeah, that's obviously a major sporting event, particularly up here in Massachusetts, where college sports are a big part of it. We kind of talked about earlier. The Patriots have obviously going to have a change. But the Celtics have a good run right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, not surprising. People like to bet on local sports teams, and local sports teams are successful.
Mhm.
Not be, $100 bet. It may be like a $10 bet or $5 bet, right? But that's consumer behaviorable wagering, is not always consistent in the sense that you're always doing it on time. It revolves around periods that makes the most money during periods, where there's playoffs or you have a local interest.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I want to talk a little bit about national stuff, Tacky. What's up with the president not knowing that the defense secretary was in the hospital for 3 days?
I was talking to Senator Cronin from Fitchburg, who's my co-chair. We had a dinner last night as we're trying to work out bills going to Joint Route 10, and he's actually ex-military.
Ah,
And he's like, this is a national security problem.
yeah.
Because, like the president, you need to know when they're unavailable, whether it be generally it's when you're unconscious, whether it be a standard procedure like President Biden had a colonoscopy, or something a little more severe where you're unconscious. And same thing goes to chain of command. I was talking to the senator, same thing, issue a chain of command regarding secretariats. It's one thing where you need someone to cover you for a meeting. It's another thing where you're unconscious.
Right. And I mean, the president's primary goal is he's the commander in chief of the armed forces, right?
Well, yes. Well, I expect that any employment, if you're going to be out for any significant time, you probably should tell your employer that you are having some issues,
Right.
and we should make some arrangements to ensure that your business or the government, in this case, runs smoothly despite your absence. And this is very troubling, especially for someone that came out of the military, that understands chain of command, uh, that should have known better. This is what I find a little surprising, because people don't realize that he is a military person, which Congress had to create a special exemption when he resigned to become defense secretary.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, it's a key cabinet position. It's not, an undersecretary or an assistant to the secretary. I mean, he's in charge of the nation's defense.
Yes, and yeah, but this applies to all secretariats.
Right.
They're all directly under the supervision of the president. Obviously, the president has his chief of staff and other members that communicate with him, just like the governor and just like all of us do in big structures, right? But I mean, essentially, he's your direct boss. And again, you're right, defense, but it can apply to transportation. As you saw the Alaskan Airlines situation of 737,
Oh, yeah.
the door got blown out. I mean, transportation secretaries like calling FAA, like, what are we going to do here?
Yeah.
And had to make a very fast decision to ground all the planes for inspection, right? The government's the one that grounds those planes.
Mhm.
So, I mean, all these secretaries are still very important. I don't think people understand or value these big decisions secretaries have to make, in emergencies that happen a lot more commonly than people realize. It's just not all make the news. And, thankfully, some of these do not realize the level of life and death circumstances, but there
Right.
are, immediate crises need to be addressed. And, a secretary needs to be found to make those decisions. And if your secretariat is unconscious or incapacitated, then, who is actually making decisions?
Right.
And the president needs to know, because you have to set up that chain of command.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's very troubling. So, in a government that promised transparency, I hope the truth comes out.
Well, I think the problem here is there's transparency to your boss,
Yeah. Well, that too. Yeah.
not just the public. You need transparency with your boss.
Right. Yeah. Something tells me that the president was not happy when he found out about it.
Oh, I'd be pretty furious.
Yeah.
The challenge here, of course, is the nature of the fact you just can't fire people on the spot. You actually have to have a transition. So the question is, going to election cycle, we all know things of politics, are they in a position where they're preparing a transition to move him out in favor of another person? You just can't flip and fly.
Mhm.
So you need to have a plan in place. And that's why I keep asking you to have faith in him. You're going to fire him. And the answer from administration should always be no.
Yep.
Because you don't have a plan yet of what to do if you decide to do a termination. And, I suspect there's probably some legit serious conversation in the White House about a transition, particularly in a sensitive period of time when you got saber rattling in China with Taiwan. You have still this Ukraine-Russian war. You have the Israeli-Hamas war. You still have pirates in South China Sea.
Yeah.
You have North Korea being interesting, launching stuff into space.
Yeah.
You have joint exercises with a lot of Pacific nations now. We still are the ones that tell NATO what to do in the end. We are the leaders of NATO. And there's a whole lot of military components that, the Pentagon engages with, not just, stuff involving protecting our interests and territories, but also, cooperating with other interests of our allies. And, part of pirates, the U.S. Navy, Department of Defense, shipping lanes are protected by the Navy. And you saw in the Red Sea, we've committed safeguard as best possible all the merchant ships moving through the Red Sea. It's not just the Red Sea. I mean, if there's some, when Somali pirates were much more active, and they still are, off of Africa. I mean, the Indian Navy was in there, the Australian Navy was in there, the U.S. Navy was in there to eliminate or discourage, depending on circumstances, pirate activity against merchant ships, because you come out of the Red Sea, you're coming that area past Ethiopia, you're heading into Somalia, and then you're in the Indian Ocean, and like 70% of what trade moves that area.
Oh yeah, I mean, and there's been, air conflicts even with Russian fighter pilots. So yeah, it's always something going on.
There's always something going on, and like all secretaries are dealing with something. And but in the case of Department of Defense, Secretary of Defense, there's a lot going on globally.
Yeah. Seeing as talking about politics, what do you think about Chris Christie dropping out?
Not surprising.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, he was playing the dark horse position. One of the challenges in running, especially in primary circumstances, how do you differentiate yourself from the other person? I've talked about before, the primary voters are shrinking immensely as people give up the party registration in both political parties. As a result, the party group is less diverse in each political party, which creates a lot more single line messaging, which I find troubling. I think political parties, both sides, should be big and diverse with more than one messaging to those members. But that's kind of where we are right now. And Christie, had taken the position of, justice must be served. People under insurrection on January 6th, as well as the fact that nobody's above the law. Now we can talk about Christie's time as governor if you want. However,
he knew that he'd be vulnerable to that, so I think he tried to head it off with some of the ads and things. Yeah,
he tried, but if you all listening, you know what I'm talking about
the bridge gate.
Bridgegate, even COVID on the beach.
That's right. I forgot about that too. Yes.
All doesn't apply to him, apparently. Even his own executive orders don't apply to him.
That's right. Yes, much was made about that.
So I mean, kind of being funny, but also not being funny about that.
Right.
He had taken a position where other candidates not in that primary, and as I said earlier, the primary voting base is much smaller in terms of the membership of those parties, of both political parties, which creates messaging, targeted him. He was trying to find a pathway where new messaging would work. Clearly, it did not.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take on Trump a situation to try to create a new path or a new interest in the party. There's just not enough people in in the parties, particularly in the early primary states, that create an avenue for him to create a wedge in.
Right. Yeah. March 5th, I think, is Super Tuesday for the presidential primary. So it'll be here before you know it.
It actually will be. So please register to vote. Massachusetts is not a closed primary in the sense that unenrolled or non-party affiliated voters, you didn't pick a political party, can choose a ballot of any primary candidate on the 5th. You want to pick Republican, pick Democrat, or you can pick an alternative party like the Green Party. If I don't know if they're on the ballot, but they always seem to get on the ballot in primaries. So you can choose one of those other ones, and then you don't have to lose your your party status as a non-party member. So I obviously do encourage everyone to participate, regardless of political party. I think your voice is important. And as I said earlier, political parties are shrinking in terms of the diversity of voices. And I think participation in primaries, whether or not you are a member of either political party, will guys like us, who are political nerds, do watch these numbers to see, what is the participation rates and whether or not the party is growing in terms of diverse messaging, or is it shrinking in diverse, lack of diverse messaging in both political parties? And you also vote for your state committee, man and woman, as part of the Democratic State Committee and the Republican State Committee on the 5th. So there's actually an additional part of the ballot. And you also have the ability to vote for your Democrat and Republican city committee members.
Mm-hmm.
So the ballot is not just the presidential primary, but also local, and actually, I think quite important that people, know that there's a city committee in both political parties. They know there's a state committee in both political parties, and that is actually put before the electorate. They are elected by the public.
Yep, absolutely. And I spoke with the city clerk actually just this morning, and there will be mail-in voting for the primary and early voting also. Matter of fact, I think the Secretary of State's office sending out the mail-in notifications this week.
Yes, and we're going to be doing this again for the primary in September, and of course the general election in November. And people like this stuff. I mean, people do participate, and numbers show that, and it takes a little pressure off cities and towns regarding staffing. It encourages folks to get in ahead if they want to get in, obviously in line if it turns out to be an extremely busy cycle. And those folks who are unable to leave the home because of medical reasons or other issues, able to do that, or maybe you have to work, or maybe you're away because you're working or something like that. You have the ability to exercise your right to vote. So, people had questioned whether it be accepted by the public, and the numbers show by participation rate that the public likes this.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very much so. Yep, and I think probably absentee balloting will eventually fade away because you don't need it anymore if you have mail-in.
Actually, by Constitution, we have to have absentee ballots.
We do? Oh, okay.
It's actually in the Constitution.
Okay.
So some variation of absentee ballots still will continue to exist. And obviously military ballots will continue to exist too.
Oh, sure, yeah.
People forget that, we make sure the ballots get to military personnel that are Massachusetts residents that are not physically in Massachusetts. And, they are the subject of absentee rule regarding, they get 10 days after election to have those ballots counted.
Right.
As long as the postmark the day of. And obviously the military takes very seriously, despite our early conversation, getting ballots to our troops overseas that are Massachusetts residents or out of state that are Massachusetts residents. So, it's hopefully, there's sufficient excitement on March 5th. But like I said, there's more than one thing on the ballot. So, you may not realize this, but, there's more than just the president. There's other people on the ballot that, they should participate in. But because the Democrat primary doesn't appear to be very interesting, because, unless something changes soon, obviously Joe Biden's going to win the presidential primary. And then, but that Republican primary may or may not be interesting. I mean, there's a conversation probably going to have in about a month.
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. There's a gig. Anything can change. What I say today, in politics can change tomorrow.
We'll put little asterisks on everything. Subject to change without notice.
Well, it's like sports teams, right? Anything can change, right?
That's true.
As we learned in Boston sports, one injury changes everything, or one person gets hot. If the team sinks somehow right after the break and goes on a monster run, sometimes they lose the cohesion, fall apart. Politics is like the weather here, and it's very unpredictable. And of course, there's a very human element like sports, and sometimes it takes one instance and everything changes.
Yeah. We are, of course, approaching the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday on Monday, and the breakfast here in Quincy is coming back for the first time in 3 years. So it's going to be at 9 o'clock Monday in the high school cafeteria.
Yes, it's great to see this breakfast return. Obviously, I encourage the public to come visit. Martin Luther King, I think people are starting to forget about a little bit the fact that, one man made a difference. We talked about earlier about anything can change. How one man can actually bring a message across, that is, quite frankly, resonates with a lot of folks, and also creates change in today's world that we're still living today. And I think the message still holds. I think that the concept of equality, concept of ability to advance, concept people to participate. People forget that about him, participate, and to engage, in your rights under the law, whether it be, exercise your vote or perhaps form a union, because unionization is right now on the uptick, right? The ability to get your equal rights under the law and ability to change the law if it's unfair.
Yeah.
So those messages still resonate today.
Yeah.
And this remembrance is very important. It's great to city to do that. And congratulations to Ian Kane being the council president and also being the keynote speaker at this year's breakfast.
Yep, absolutely. That's open to the public, and it's free for all. So
yes, and I'll be there at 9 a.m.
Very good. Anything else we should let folks know about in the district, Tacky?
Nothing off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at my calendar. Well, I looked at my calendar, but I'm trying not to remember parts of my calendar sometimes.
Well, I happen to know the Housneck Polar Plunge is coming up.
Yeah, I'm not getting into one. Friends of Walson Beach has theirs. There's Polar Plunge out there. They did one at Lincoln Hancock last year.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Not going to plunge?
I love the water. You all know I can't swim to begin with. I might wade sometimes.
Up to your ankles.
Yeah, yes. As you guys all know, I don't BS you all. I just tell you.
All right. Well, you'll be there in spirit, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be rooting from the comfort and warmth of my home.
Very good.
So, these are obviously very important, activities and, important fundraisers. So even if you can't participate, obviously encourage people to donate what they can. And I've said this many times before, if you're able to spare a couple bucks, and it's a local organization that is important to you, definitely consider it. You don't have to do it today. You can take a time when you have the capacity to do so.
Yeah, the Housing Community Center does great work, and as you well know, I know you support them in many different ways. So they're a great organization.
Yes, absolutely, and also Troop 6 out there.
Yep,
Scouts, and then you have, of course, I would forget the number, but the West Quincy one, which
I
of course,
forget too.
I think it's 24. I just forgot that, obviously.
I think it's 42 actually. You had it backwards.
Backwards.
Yeah,
obviously. Yeah, my memory's going. I'm aging too, people. I am aging. But yeah, I mean, there's some great works, and they work with the local communities as well. Obviously the Housneck Garden Club.
Yep.
What we approach spring, the activity goes up there. Another great organization to donate, and Manor Community Health Center is still out there.
For sure. Yep.
And another important organization to the state, and I know I'm going to cover mostly Housneck, but give you a couple of examples of great civic groups.
Yes, absolutely. City's very fortunate to have so many active and engaged folks. Time to tell folks how to get a hold of you, Tacky.
Yeah, 617-722-2370, 617-722-2370. We are open. Feel free to give us a call. I am aware who calls in. The staff tells me. Obviously, you can email at tackey.chan@emmahouse.gov, tackey.chan@emmahouse.gov. As you all know, I get a lot of emails, but right now I can find them all. So I'm very excited by the fact that these simple things in life and the fact that I can actually sort my email properly. You can see me on State Representative Tacky Chan Facebook account. We sometimes get some pictures up there about where I've been, what I've been doing, and some important things. We have @Tacky Chan on X. So we do have a Twitter account. I greatly discourage contacting me through social media. It's better to call us directly to the office. Please leave us a phone number. We'd like to get back to you because we may have questions about what you're calling about. And obviously, you have the state website, MAlegislature.gov. You don't need me to find your bill. You can look it up there, as well as watch hearings and sessions. And we have tackyshan.org, which is the kind of our phone number website page. And of course, it's spending time with QATV here with you. And I had time with Mark Crosby prior to the holiday on Stateview as well. So, I do spend more time with Joe. But these kind of broadcasts are, again, ad hoc. This is not scripted. So anything can happen. It's very important to share some insights not just about the status, but some random thoughts that come along our way.
Yeah, we have the benefit of being quite timely and respond to events as they happen. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, and big complaints go to Joe. Um, don't like the show, go to Joe. I don't control the show anyway. So if you're unhappy, tell Joe to cancel me.
I would never do such a thing, Jackie, because these days anybody can do a show without me.
I kind of joke and half joke. I have no control over what happens here, people. So
Well, that is true. Yeah, he has no editorial control whatsoever.
zero editorial control.
That's right. But by the nature of local access, we don't edit this either, folks. What you see is what happened.
So, but this is always fun, as you guys all can tell. Ad hoc conversations, and sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong, but I mean, it's real. And
Yeah.
I'm not here promoting products. I'm not here promoting a political philosophy. I'm not here making you angry, because I want to do that. I hope to make you laugh sometimes, because the tacky quips are sometimes try to keep the mood light, and because we talk about serious stuff here. And
Yeah, for sure. It's all about people. That's what your job is. It's working with people.
yeah, sometimes we have a little fun, but sometimes it's very serious. But I think it's good to have a mixture of both. So hope you all come back again and see us or listen to us on your favorite podcast.
Thanks a lot, Tech. See you next week.